Good morning and welcome to Women Warriors Network event, Women in Healthcare, Mapping the Emotional Patient Journey. We're going to understand from our speakers the impact of emotions identified at the subconscious level that can help improve the patient experience. We have today Nadine van Dongen, Shannon Altimari, and Kate Munro. Thank you to everyone who support Women Warriors, who have contributed to the many events over the past few years globally as speakers and attendees as we continue to grow. I'm delighted to lead this event. A big thank you also to PIPHealth and Quilter Cheviot for sponsoring our events, which is very much appreciated. So I am Sandy Donnelly, founder of Women Warriors Network and DBC Health Retreats, passionate about well-being and female empowerment. So what's it all about? It was created amidst the pandemic when everything was closed and we couldn't see each other. So we had to suddenly revert to Zoom in, which I still can't seem to do very well. But there are so many women here, very ordinary yet extraordinary women warriors who want to share their knowledge, wisdom, to connect, contribute, and collaborate with like-minded people. Men, of course, men. Please, can you mute if you're on screen, guys? So men, yes, men, we love men. They are supermen if they can, and they do support women. But this is a platform for women to shine, for women to be able to just put across their points on very important topics. So we launched in Dubai in a personal event in April with the Women of Sustainability event, which was a great success as we continue to grow globally this network. So what do we think about when we think about women in healthcare? First thing we probably think are the doctors and nurses who are absolutely incredible. But then we also have the role models like Elizabeth Backwell, Marie Curie, Gertie Corey, to name just a few. But here I have some incredible women in this industry who have so much more to give us, so much more to offer, and so much for us to learn about. So I'm going to start by introducing Shannon Altimari. She's the Senior Director, Patient Engagement and Oncology Lead at GSK. Hello, Shannon, and very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Sandy. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to speak to the group. So thank you for the time.
Thank you for taking the time. I can't wait to hear your insights on this. So I'm going to go straight into the questions. So you believe in building advocates to help shape and nurture reputation for the benefit of organizations and stakeholders. So why is it important to focus on the most important stakeholder, the patient?
Thank you. That's a great question to start out with. So absolutely, understanding the patient is really something that is second nature to us here at GSK. I've been with the company since they were acquired by a company they acquired the company I was working for, Tesaro. And as we know, with so many other areas, so many other industries, it's very important that they understand the person at the end, the consumer, the end user. But pharma for so many years has focused on the physician and the payer. And while I don't disregard the importance of the physician and the payers as part of the ecosystem of patient care, what we neglect is what is important to the patient so that they can maintain their life while they're being treated for a disease or while they're taking therapy that they have to take because they have a chronic condition. We have to remember that we're all patients. So in the end, we need to be thinking about all patients as people. And so thinking about what's important to them, their emotional journey, where they get their information, how they make decisions, where they make decisions, how they weigh decisions is so critical. And it's not that all patients are going to be the same. That isn't a monolith. Understanding the patient experience and understanding what's important to them every single time we've ever delved into this or in any of the disease areas I work in, there's always these different personas is what we call them. People are going to want information differently, or people are going to make decisions differently and prioritize them differently. So somebody may be more concerned about keeping their job, or they may be more concerned about, spending time with their children, or they may have some aspiration that they want to achieve, or they don't want to experience an adverse event, or they have a certain tolerance for an adverse event. So being able to think about how those experiences, or how that is going to impact their experience, is really critical. So not just thinking, hey, this drug works, and so people are going to take it. No, that's not the way we should be looking at it. We should be looking at what are going to be those decision factors for a patient as part of their healthcare team to be able to make those choices.
Sorry, was unmuting there.
No, you're good.
What's really lovely to hear you speaking very passionately about the patient side of things. And I think from a perspective of somebody who isn't in healthcare, like myself, I'd like to think, well, surely they put the patient first. Surely it gives us the voice. As PIPHealth always say, give patient the voice. And a lot of people feel neglect in that way, because they do think, well, they're in a hurry. Oh, we can't see the healthcare professional. Oh, they're not listening to us. Oh, they are thinking about the next pay rise or their job. So from that perspective, it's great to hear from somebody like you, Shannon, from GSK, being able to put that across to us. And thank you for that. But how does GSK define the patient?
So the patient, I mean, the way that I'm looking at it is the person who we are treating. But of course, let's also think about the ecosystem, or the people around them. So their caregivers, their family, that entire sort of tableau, and who are the people that they're leaning into. I think we have this idea that if somebody is ill, they're going to do whatever they can in order to get better. But the reality is that if treating somebody, if treating them for their illness ends up having an impact on their quality of life, or an impact on the life that they're leading day to day, then they're going to want to consider another treatment. They're going to want to consider maybe even not taking treatment. They're going to want to consider something holistic. And I think we've all seen that, right? Like I know that there's data out there that shows that, like, women who are going through menopause, many women will start by taking a holistic remedy, but over time, a majority of those women end up going on HRT. And I think the reason for that is because so many women have read about the very flawed study that came out in the 90s, early aughts, that said there was a risk. So a lot of women to this day, 25, 30 years later, are still wrestling with, is that going to be the right choice for me? So I think that's an example of, people will take steps but they're taking considerations at the end. And so we always have to think about how is it going to impact their life? How is it going to impact, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, to just be able to maintain normalcy and just be able to maintain the life that they lead. We've heard from patients that they want more years to their life, or they want more life to their years, not necessarily years to their life. And that's a direct quote that's come from one of the patients that we work with here. Because one of the things we do at GSK is have patient expert councils, and we learn from patients directly. And I think that's such an important perspective to be able to consider, that it's not always just about combating the disease. It's the entire world around the person, and their disease is one part of that.
I like that. Life to the years. We want more life, basically, to be able to live our lives a bit more full, rather than have years of maybe suffering and in pain. That people want to be able to live life. And you hear of so many patients who the end of their life was horrendous, whereas they could have, if they took a different route, it may have been a little bit more fulfilling with for the precious time left to spend with their family and with their people they do love. That's again a lovely point to hear, because it's very personal, and patients are people. We are, and as you said, at some stage in our lives, we probably are a patient at some stage, even if it's through childbirth, if you live healthily, we're still a patient at some stage. So, and we all want that best care, and for the healthcare professionals to listen to us. So, and just finally, Shannon, so what is the emotional element? I know you've touched on this, to help build empathy and better support patients.
Yeah, so what we've done here at GSK is often what we do is we do these patient journey studies, and we partner with the researchers within the organization. We usually will end up partnering with an external vendor who specializes in these areas. And what we will do is we'll try to map that emotional journey and understand very, very specific points in a patient journey or patient experience, so that we can actually modify our strategies to be more empathetic or to be more thoughtful about what's important to patients. And that has actually shifted the way that we work or we talk to patients. So our strategies have gotten shifted where we've prioritized understanding what a comorbidity in a particular disease may actually mean to a patient, right? There can be clinical measures of a particular comorbidity, but what's the actual emotional measure of that? So that's been something that's actually helped shift some of our strategy. We've changed the way that we talk to patients about adverse events, right? We're not trying to trivialize it, but in talking to patients and helping them understand what the real experience of that adverse event from a treatment may be, we hear adverse event, and even that word sparks some consideration or some fear in patients or in people. But really, what we need to be focusing on is, okay, every therapy is going to have pros and cons that need to be weighed, but what's the reality of those pros and cons, right? And we've even done some work where we've looked into, if patients aren't even getting offered a type of treatment, why is that? And if you find out that people just aren't even having that conversation, it's empowering the people who are going to be, going through that treatment to be able to to be able to understand what that means and is this even something that can be an option for them if they don't know what that option is? So it's really important to be understanding people as they're going through their disease, to be able to help them live the best life that they possibly can and be able to do what's important to them so that we can empower them to make better treatment choices as part of their care team. And that, to me, is the most important thing to be considering. Because for so long, we've always thought that, people just want to treat their disease and everything else be gone. But the reality is that it needs to be a consideration that's broader than that, particularly in areas where there's so much choice and there's so many options for people to be, considering as part of their care.
Thank you. I think you said on the emotional, like measuring that scale on the emotional level. Do you think, this is just a question I'm thinking also, that there are people you're offering as professionals different routes to take in their treatment, maybe perhaps, but do you think, because I don't speak up, I just think, oh, okay, it's fine, and don't look for maybe there is an alternative option. I think I'm one of the ones who just says, oh, okay, I accept it and I'll walk away. Is there a way that we can encourage patients to speak up a little bit, and not be afraid of, because I might feel a bit stupid that, oh, okay, they might say, well, why don't you understand? I have ulcerative colitis, for example. Thankfully, that's all, and it's all fine. It's all under control. But I don't know if I'd speak up enough to say, in case they feel, well, why don't you understand that? I've had it for 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's very common, is that we always see that in many places, across the globe, people see the physician as the most important person, or the person who's going to make be the right decision maker. I know that when we work with our Japanese colleagues, there's this deference to the physician. Somebody even said they see them as like a sensei. And so what I think is important is providing the information to allow people to do what they will with it, because information is power and information can be empowering. And so if people just even understand what those options are, or what they should even be considering, I think that is what's most important. And what people can do with that information, then that's up to them. I know that in certain disease areas, particularly diseases that are more long-term, patients often go into, or people with a certain condition will often go into a situation with their physician being very deferential. But as they start to live with their condition longer, they end up becoming more part of that care team. That doesn't mean everybody's going to want to do that, and that's okay as well. But if you want to do that, having that information in order to enable that is so critical to be able to, for you to feel comfortable and for you to be able to feel empowered as part of that.
Nadine or Kate, do you have anything to add to that? Because I know Shannon has to, she's not here for the whole duration. So I just want to ask before Shannon does.
Now, thank you, Shannon, because that's it's perfect. Like what I'm gonna in the next bit where I'm speaking, I'm also going to go a bit more in the practical way to do it. So you set up the perfect scene actually for why is it so important to to kind of uncover and map the emotional patient journey. So thank you so much and it's great to see that GSK is so patient centric and patient engaged, putting that in the middle. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. And please, anybody, feel free to reach out if there's anything else you'd like to discuss or have further questions. I'm always happy to answer that.
Thank you, Shannon. I mean, what I'll do is, obviously this is recorded. I will send this out with your details, if that's okay, if anybody does reach out to ask any more questions, but really appreciate you joining. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Apologies, I have to dash, but really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you, Shannon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was brilliant. It was lovely to hear from a perspective from a huge company, GSK. I think from every angle of where we're coming from, it's all very important and it all ties into what the topic of this is. And on that note, I will now introduce Nadine van Dongen. She's the founder and managing partner for PIPHealth, also sponsor for Women Warriors Network and a big supporter of this growing network here in the UK and globally. So thank you. But Nadine, firstly, tell us about PIP.
Yes, so thank you so much, Sandy, and Women Warriors Network for allowing me to sponsor and also that you hosted this event. Because I just am so I'm so proud to be a woman in healthcare, because it's a group. Yeah, exactly. It's a group of it's a group where I always feel very supported and supportive of other women, and I really like to be part of it, because not only everybody's driven, but also determined to make a change. And also, thank you, Shannon, for sharing her, she's gone now, but thank you for her experience and amazing examples of the way GSK is working to incorporate patients in everything they do. I'll start with a brief introduction, and then I'll dive more into the how to map the emotional patient journey, more of the how and not why. So, my name is Nadine. I'm Dutch, and I live in London for over 15 years, where I started the patient research company, PIPHealth, and it stands for Patient Intelligence Panel. And I started it over a decade ago. But started as a research consultancy, grew out to be amazing patient panel. So I have a story why I started the Patient Intelligence Panel, where I was involved being a patient after a car crash. I told that story so many times, so I'll leave that for this time and just focus on how the consultancy research company grew out to become a patient panel, where we have over 25,000 members over 8 different countries in Europe, and they give explicit consent to be part of our panel. And that means that these patients or people with health conditions are behind us to really wait for anyone to ask them about their opinion, about their experiences, about their perceptions and their beliefs. So we've done, over the last 14 years, we've done hundreds of patient projects in all different diseases, in IBD, in MS, oncology, cardiovascular disease, and many more. So we work for pharmaceutical companies, but also for health communication agencies, and actually also for other research companies. So even though they are a competitor, we have a mission to give patients a voice So whoever wants to hear that voice, we help them find the patients to share their voice. So that's what we do every day, one voice at a time. And we've reviewed a countless number of patient brochure, like what Shannon also said about the information is power. But if people cannot really understand the patient leaflets, yeah, then you still are not conveying the information. So we've done tested messaging about progression of the disease and discovered importance of people's perceptions of a disease. But then every now and then you do a project and it just stays with me. And I stayed with this project, just keeps playing on my mind. And then I also feel that there's an importance of not just the outcomes of this research project I've done, but also the method and actually the road leading to the outcomes. And that's exactly what happens when I did a project with Amgen in the Netherlands, together with Frank van der Helm. And it was about the emotional patient journey in hemophilia. And we published an opinion piece about it last week. And so the information I share with you is also published, so I can share some of the information. I can't really focus too much on the outcomes of the project, but mainly the method. And yeah, that's what mapping of the emotional patient journey is. And then when I was preparing for this event, I was rereading the article, and it made me laugh a bit that it was so much jargon I used. So we used so many words that are very in the industry. So I thought, let's make it more engaging. Let's play some bingo. Really. So I'm going to share my screen.
Sorry, Nadine, to interrupt while you're just preparing your screen. Also, with that article, I did post it up last week, but I will put the link in when we did the recording so that people can access it.
That would be great, because it's, I will tell you a bit about it. So do you see my screen, Sandy?
Yes.
Great. So like I said, we had all these terms in this article, and it's also a little bit of a cheat card for me for this speech. But yeah, so let's play bingo. So prompts and prems. I think everybody heard definitely about the prompts. So prompts are patient-reported outcome measures, and they are embedded in a lot of health protocols that are developed with NICE guidelines or European guidelines. So the patient-reported outcome measures are, it's quite easy, it's quite clinical parameters. However, the PREMS is the patient-reported experience measures. They are more difficult to measure because it's about experiences, and you've got the patients and they have all their own journeys, their own experiences. So how do you measure experiences in a more research perspective? And then you've got Intel, and in this case it's patient Intel, so patient intelligence, where you kind of go look for insights, but it's beyond the pill. So it's not about what is this drug doing or what is the people, what are their clinical parameters, but it's about what they are feeling, what they are thinking, what are they experiencing. So when you kind of realize that there is a bit of a challenge of getting these PREMs measured through Intel, we did in this project and in multiple projects we've done after, we started with a qual. So for people not in the research world, it's qualitative research, and we collected themes. So we collect themes. I have to say themes more in English way. Collect themes about what's happening in the journeys, and then afterwards we validate that by doing quant. And quant stands for quantitative research, where you get a bigger group of people, bigger sample, bigger group of patients to validate what we are thinking is happening in these themes. So we validate, and from the validation, you can make then recommendations, and you can implement better brochures, better strategies, better messaging for patients. So we that's the idea of the mapping the emotional patient journey. So by definitely already knowing the prompts, but investigating the PREMs through Intel with qual and quants, I want to have my last tick box of my last square, and that's MM. And through this case study in multiple myeloma, That's an hemophilia. The MM is used a lot. So this case study, I want to talk to you about, because that will kind of give an example of how this then works when you map the patient's journey, the emotional patient journey, because patient journeys are mapped all the time, but the emotional patient journey is not. So what we did was we had 5 people with multiple myeloma, and we asked them to go through all the stages in their journey. So the life before the diagnosis, the first symptoms, the testing, the diagnosis, the first starting the first treatment, life with the treatment, then relapse, which is common in multiple myeloma, that you have a relapse, and then life with MM. So you kind of go through this, and then you ask about their stories, because it's 5 in-depth qualitative research. So you hear about all their stories, and then you find the themes. So as an example, this is fictional because I cannot disclose the data. But for example, Joe, we interviewed him, and he was very active before the diagnosis, and then his first symptoms started, and he just lacked energy. While Joanne, she worked as a nurse, and she was had a big social life, and she had a lot of pain in her bones. So she had pain was her first symptom. So again, 2 different stories, 2 different experiences. And you think, well, Nadine, you are now measuring more clinical parameters, pain and energy loss. However, when we then ask about their emotions, we say, what does that energy loss do to you? We hear that Joe really felt uncertainty. What is this energy? I'm so fit. I'm so active. Why am I not having energy? So uncertainty was there. And in Joanne's pain case, we translated that into an emotion of despair. She had so much pain. It was so hard to live with. And she had uncertainty. Well, so we go through all the steps, and we ask about all these things happening to them. And we get all these themes like energy loss or pain, and therefore with the linking emotions. So we found out in this case that uncertainty was the biggest emotion throughout the whole, when we were mapping the journey. And in all the steps, there were different second emotions, which I cannot reveal, but the uncertainty was one of the biggest throughout. And if you then compare that with the study we did in breast cancer, where the patients were women, we had a group of women, they had their breast removed, where there was a very big dip in uncertainty afterwards, because the uncertainty was there, but there was a dip in it because there was relief and also other emotions with that, as you can imagine. But that kind of then made me think that maybe certain diseases are championing some emotions more than others, which is a massive outcome, of course, because as a pharma company or a health communication company, you can then help patients dealing with these emotions. And by helping them deal with the emotions that are leading in a certain disease compared to another disease, you can improve their quality of life and bring more years to life. No, life to years, as Shannon said. So, yeah, I think, did I explain it all correct?
Right. I think for me, again, as a non-health professional, but on a patient perspective, I think you've explained that really well. And what's really good for me to hear is it's very in-depth, and you're very precise with those steps you've just taken to explain that. I mean, first of all, when the bingo screen came up, I thought, oh, I love bingo. But then I looked at the words and my initial was, oh, what's that? But as you've just taken us through those steps to explain it, that was very clear for me to understand.
Yeah, because that's also one of my, because as a research company and a research, passionate conductor, as you say that, I sometimes think it's important to give a toolkit to people. So it's all nice and well to say, oh, we need to learn more about the patient journey and the emotional patient journey. But if you don't know how to do it, then it will never happen. So with our methodology, methodological or systematic way of trying to get these emotions more out of people, and then get it more significant and statistical relevant part, then we can actually use that data to bring into pharma for decision making, for developing services, for better communication, or so that's why maybe I'm a bit geek for doing everything so precise, but that's also part of my I love the numbers, and I love also to thoroughly dive into people's lives and find common denominators in that.
I think, geek or no geek, you've put so much into this that it's clear that it's so successful, your method of doing this and presenting it to the pharma companies, because you're actually in person speaking to these patients. You're doing what, it's not a machine saying, oh, okay, she has this and that, what can we do for her? You're actually on a quite an emotional basis.
Yeah, well, you know, Sandy, you know me personally as a friend as well, so you know that I also take everything into my work. And even one of my friend clients is here now. I see Natasha is also attending this, and she and we did a project on prostate cancer, and we both were also very engaged and very much empathic. It was everything we did in that research project. So yeah, that was good.
But the passion shines through. And I think this is why you're so successful in what you do, because you're not just there putting figures down and ticking boxes. You are actually very emotional in your journey to ensure that the patient is having their voice, is put over what their concerns are, or what could be done to help them. And that's what it's all about. So I think incredible what you do on so many levels.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It's very kind.
Very good. No, thank you.
Well, I'm also very excited to hear from Kate, because Kate has another expertise where when I met Kate, I was just listening to all of her stories and I could almost eat them. So I'm really excited to hear.
Well,
thanks, Nadine.
On that note, we will move on to Kate. Kate, thank you so much for joining us. And I think, as Nadine said, from a different perspective again, so it gives another insight into what this whole event, this topic is all about. It's very interesting to have somebody in your position to join us. So it's really, really appreciated, and we look forward to hearing from your point of view. But I'll go straight into the questions, if that's okay. So you've worked extensively in the development side of new oncology medicines, the cancer drugs. Can you share your experience of what patients experience in this process? This is a good one, actually.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for having me. What we've heard so far is about people exploring patients who are diagnosed with the disease and maybe having a treatment that's already approved. What I want to talk about is what patients want to experience when they go into a clinical trial. It takes about 8 to 10 years to get a drug onto the market. So there's a lot of clinical trials going on where patients will have to go. And when I first started my career, I mean, back in the early 1990s, I was a clinical research associate. My job was to monitor clinical trials, go to sites and look at data. And I can tell you at that point in 1993 or 4, the patients were basically numbers and initials and in piles of paper that we put in duplicate in case report forms. So it was very much, there were data processing machines, so we could get data to get drugs developed and approved. I think it took a long while before things changed. And for me personally, in 1996, my mother had a crushing diagnosis of advanced lung cancer. She had some early treatment but failed, and then her only option was to go into a clinical trial. And I think the emotions I was experiencing at the time were fear, vague bits of hope, but mainly fear and sadness. And for my mother, it was just, she was just desperate to do anything she could to extend her life. And there was really no choice. She had to go on the clinical trial because there was nothing else. And I think that's a sort of choice that in early drug development, when we really don't know anything about a clinical trial, about the drug that's being developed, they're the choices that patients have to make. They're not really making when you're in early stage development, phase 1 or phase 2, as it's known, the drug companies cannot offer any benefit. We can offer an option. And so for those patients who have a crushing diagnosis or a very scary diagnosis or a disease they've never heard of, to then to be put on a clinical trial, it's a big decision. And so understanding the patient needs is very important. But surprisingly, it wasn't really until the 2010s that patient engagement started to happen. And I think that's what's been scary. That's what's been an amazing process that we've followed. And we've seen, heard from Nadine and heard from GSK how much they're doing. It's also happening in the drug development world. But I would say in drug development, the main emotions that patients have to confront is they have to understand their disease. There's a lot of curiosity about their disease. They have to understand the treatment options. So there's a lot of knowledge expansion, and there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of places finding out where they might get support. But the main drive for people to go into clinical trials is altruism. I think it's understanding, could they help someone else, particularly when we don't know if this drug is going to have any benefit to anybody. We don't know what the dose is. We don't know if it's really going to work. So I think that's the main thing that I see in patients who go into clinical trials.
Sorry, why does it take me so long to unmute?
No problem.
Hey, that's very interesting, actually, because not only have you, it's your sector, but you've experienced it at firsthand with your mum. And I mean, so you've got those added emotions which are added into it. Do you think that would make you a bit all for it? Because obviously, as you said, it takes 8 to 10 years for a drug to evolve for it to come back. That's a long, that's a long time. So if they are at the early stages of a new drug and you're desperate for, I just want more life, I want to be able to live more, I think a lot of people are going to take that risk. They're going to take that chance. And I mean, you just talked about it evolving, how it's evolved from the 90s to 2010, and the sort of the stages, how it has evolved through the knowledge, I guess, is, did it work? Has it worked? How do we need to change this drug? I mean, what an interesting topic, what an interesting field to be in. But I say also there must be a lot of highs and lows throughout the process of these drugs.
Yeah, I mean, people who are not aware, drugs have most drugs don't work from clinical development. So particularly if you work in the early stages of development, every drug that we put into the first clinical trial, only 1 in 10 will ever get approval. So most of the drugs that start just never succeed. And it's also worth understanding that when you approve a drug, you don't approve a drug because it works in every patient. You get approval because the benefit outweighs the risk. So there will always be risks involved in treatment. And that's something also to understand, which I think, is explored when we do patient journeys. So they have a disease, but what treatment will they take, and what benefit can they expect? And also, what risks are they willing to take to get those benefits? And I think this is something that's explored in clinical trials as well, which people sort of need to understand. And I think it's also useful to understand anyone who accepts a prescription, it is not that it will work 100%. It will work in some patients, and there will be risk. And overall, the data package shows that the benefit to most patients outweighs the risk that in most patients. That's how drugs are approved, which I think is unclear to many people.
Is there then a lot of, again, from a non-medical person field, is there then, so say there's a new disease, or there's still a disease that hasn't been cured? Well, we've got cancer, obviously, if we start from the beginning, but look at the progression over the years of how it's evolved. Thankfully, if it's caught in time, what the medications, the treatments which can be had. Are there a lot, this is just me asking a question in between. So are there then the different pharmaceutical companies who then say, right, our scientists are going to look into this. Oh, so are we. And then they all have to bring it to a board and kind of say, look, ours may work. I wonder how they choose who's the forerunner.
Sorry, it turns out my door. Just leave it there. Yeah, thank you. I'd say in the ideal world, all the big drug companies will be working together and choose the best drug.
Right.
In the real world, every drug company is preparing its own portfolio of medicines, which they think are the best to deliver the best patient outcomes. So I think what you see then on the market is there is often multiple medicines for the same treatment, for the same disease. If there has been a treatment available for a long time, then it is the responsibility of the developing company to use that as sort of their comparator to see, is it better? And people who are paying for the drug, like the health authorities who are paying for it, will ask to see which is the better drug based on patient outcomes. So the comparison does happen, but it doesn't happen altruistically through the companies. It happens through the process of regulation and payers. I think that's more how it happens.
Very interesting. That's very interesting. So again, one more from me. So say a box of paracetamol on the shelves in Boots, there's the big names and then there's the Boots own brand, but they work as well, I'd say. I mean, I don't really take medication.
Yeah, I mean, if you pay for the brand, for the original brand, you're paying for the research and the development that goes behind that. So I think that's what you pay for. That's all I can say about that. So
yeah, and it's just like Kellogg's, it's like choosing cornflakes from Kellogg's or Sainsbury's, Kellogg's, whatever.
Exactly.
So
can I just make one more point around so what's changed really in terms of patient involvement in clinical trials? So I think what's really changed is regulation. It's awareness, patient awareness, mainly driven by the internet. And I think COVID has been a big trigger. So regulation started to appear in like 2012, both in the US with the FDA and in Europe with the EMA, where they started to bring in things like patient initiatives. And now it's regularly required by companies to show how they've brought in the patient perspective to the development plan. So do the patients they're bringing into the clinical trials represent what's actually happening in the real world through the things like Nadine's talking about in terms of patient journeys. And so it is a requirement that increasingly a requirement that drug companies show that they understand the patient journey and they've involved the patient's perspective in how they're developing the drug in terms of frequency of how often you have to take the tablet, how often the side effects are bearable and things like that. Secondly, awareness. Patient groups have formed patient advocacy groups, and they are demanding to be included as well. So it's woe betide the companies that do not get involved in those things. And the biggest trigger really was COVID. We had a lot of technology already available, and we just weren't using it. So when hospitals shut down, there was 1,000 clinical trials in the US that were put on hold. And so the companies couldn't stop developing their drugs. They had to find ways to do that. So what they did is they designed what's now known as decentralized clinical trials. So instead of the patient have to go to the hospital for every visit, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, they decentralized it. So they said, we'll do video appointments. We'll do nurse visits. Instead of coming to us for your blood draw, you can go to a local center. So that meant that patients were able to participate with far less sort of physical geography demands. And that change has been maintained since COVID. So we're seeing far more decentralized clinical trials, which means that we have a bigger reach of patients, not just patients who are based in a city centre, but we can now include patients from more regional centres, which means a much more diverse representation of people, including in clinical trials. So they're the things that I think have really changed inclusion of patients, and with that, their perspectives and their emotions.
And that's on a real positive, isn't it? So COVID,
absolutely,
a lot of sadness and negativity, of course, we know that, but it forced the changes, I guess.
And now we see things like wearables and all of these tech devices. So all of this stuff means eventually we'll get to a place where there should be like continuous feedback from patients within their clinical trial, rather than waiting for a visit where you have to like jot down everything on a checklist. actually the data from your wearable, your watch or whatever it is, should be able to continuously feed into the development plan and see if something is going wrong or right. And if we need to monitor things, like do they need to come in because they can see the heart rate going up, or there's been some other sort of change. So the involvement of the patient will become much more intensive and continuous through technology and through patient demands.
That's incredible, actually. You're saying about, sorry, Nadine, I'll let you go, with the data, us using our watches, our Apple watches, whatever. A friend of mine had a big heart operation last year, and he was advised, because he never wore a watch, why don't you, because he has a stent now and a valve replaced, use the watch, and he was a bit, oh, okay then. But it's exactly what you've said. It's the patient involvement. Nadine, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just had a light bulb moment, because we're always talking about, especially me with the panel, we always talk about active engagement. So we're always asking about their emotions, about their patient experiences actively by just asking and getting a reply. But now you just made me realize that through wearables, you've got passive engagement. So you get that's a whole different area where you can measure also patient journeys, where you can see if you get people who already have a wearable before they're diagnosed, when their first symptoms come, you can even track back and you can see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If there's a platform to share the data, you can use it for yourself. Obviously, it's really great to monitor your own health. But if there's a special wearable design where your data is shared to the company that's developing the drug or to an agency that's trying to understand the disease, they can really get a much closer view on how the disease is progressing or how you are coping with the treatment or the disease itself. So I think, people are scared of sharing data, or I don't want to share my data. Actually, I'm really for sharing my data, because if I share my data, there's going to be more information that people can draw a better picture and a clearer picture of health overall for people in my demographic. And so then they can make better predictions for what happened to me in the future. So I'm all for sharing data. And I think that's something that I think is a responsibility almost to help others.
Well, that's what Shannon also said about altruism. That's what you said, sorry, Kate. Yeah, about altruism, that is the main driver to participate in clinical trial. So I think that altruism goes through it all, because also when we do interviews with people from PIPHealth, then people get paid for it, or they can donate to charity. And then you see that almost all of them want to participate, but they get paid because we want to pay them, because we don't want to assume that you do this for free. But we give them an opportunity also to donate to charity, and that's also always the case because people want to make that difference and want to share that. Wow, yeah, very interesting. That passive engagement, that's a new trigger for me. Thank you.
It's the future. We're not quite there yet, but I think it's definitely the future.
So, what my last question, which you did just cover, what does the future look like? And it's definitely, this is definitely the way it's going forward. I lost my watch last week. Thankfully, I've got it back. But I said, this is my everything is on here. When I'm exercising, walking, my steps, I do take my calls. Everything comes through here. And you can analyze your sleep. It's an incredible futuristic, but it is happening now, what we have and we've got access to. And like you said, sharing the data, I'm all for that as well, because if it can help myself, my family, or others, then why not? Why not? And each time when I have a colonoscopy and they say, oh, can somebody, a student come in or whatever, and I'm like, absolutely. It's not a pretty sight, but it's if it helps them, it helps me also with colitis. I'm sorry to colitis, but on another scale. Interesting. I think I would love to do another event related around the women in healthcare, because I think there's a lot more you can touch on and what we as the audience can learn from also. Nadine, do you cover then several, you were saying about, reaching out to the patients. So you cover all sorts of diseases.
Yeah, so we in our panel, we kind of give people become a member through PIPHealth.com, and they become a member for free, obviously, and they then can say their age, their where they live, or I believe the postcode, and their gender if they want to disclose, and what type of disease they are diagnosed with, or if they're a carer for someone. So we've done also research projects in Alzheimer where we kind of try to get Alzheimer patients, but also back it up with carers information. So we kind of try to make sure that we don't forget about the carers, because carers are a very important part in healthcare, not just as the people who care for the patient, but also making decisions a lot of the time about treatments and so yeah. So we've got all different diseases, and we do all different projects. And yeah, now my new thing is really trying to get the emotions back up in all these projects, because we do a lot of clinical patient journeys where when do you see the doctor? What did the doctor say? What do you say to the doctor? And it's very clinical journeys. And by putting an extra level of emotions over that, I think you humanize the actual delivery of these care systems. But not only that, you also give purpose to the people working in pharma, because the people working in pharma, sometimes when I present the projects that we've done, and I actually show the verbatim quotes of patients who have been participating in the research projects, you can see that there's sometimes people really held back in the groups thinking, oh wow, I never realized the impact of a disease on that part of in that area of life. So yeah, I think purpose in life is really important for everyone, and I think it's great to see pharmaceutical managers or people working in healthcare communication agencies. I always get that feeling of when we talk that people are driven by purpose, that they really want to make a change, and I think that's why I love working in this space.
Amazing. I think where you hit on as well about the carers being important, very important as the patient, because in a lot of cases they are the sole person who's probably dealing with doctor's appointments, medication. So I think it's nice you have that area in PIP that gives them that opportunity, because the person who is the patient may not want to speak or don't be bothered. They're not bothering. And again, I think it's a nice you have the incentive of they can be paid or they can donate to a charity. So again, and I think that's on a lazy perspective of people, that they're like, well, I can't be bothered. Well, okay, you can earn a few quid or give it to your charity. Oh, okay, I'll do it. I'll take a few minutes to do this. It's a shame, but in our busy lives, we're all rushing around. But you should I'll share your link also, because I think it's important if people do have any diseases, concerns, or about their patient journey, engagement, it's worth having a look on and signing up to PIPHealth as well. And back to related to the clinical trials, I find this so interesting, because obviously the journey starts with the patient, with the disease they have. But the next step, correct me if I'm wrong, is seeking medical help and then medication or treatment of some sorts. So and then along the line which is a shame, you're further along the line, Nadine, I'd say, because really that patient, you should be there at the forefront.
Yeah, but that's also a reason why I suggested Kate to be a speaker as well in this event, because I think sometimes we forget about doing insight projects in patients, engaging patients. When the drug is there, it's quite obvious. Yeah, of course, we want to know about how people are feeling, thinking, what they're doing. However, by clinical trial patient insights, you can actually take it much deeper, that you think, okay, we're developing this drug, but is there a need for this drug? Is there from a patient perspective in need.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
maybe it can add 3 months more to a life, for example, in oncology. But is it really needed if it comes with all these side effects?
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
then
exactly.
you think, if you already know that certain side effect in oncology products is so severe on quality of life, then, and you're starting to develop a drug where you kind of figure out in early testing that the side effect will most likely be really severe on that area, maybe it's better than to pull the plug. And
well, most of the drugs I worked on were terminated because the side effect profiles were intolerable. So those decisions are made. And I think what drug companies do is we always have advisory committees of experts like these big physicians and professors, but now we also have patient advisory groups. So we'll get boards of patients who come and talk to us about their experience, about what's needed. So we do that during the course of development so we can build those things in. And you talked about patient reported outcomes. They're often now become endpoints in clinical trials. So rather than just the disease marker, like have you reduced the tumor size or whatever, the companies now are required to include a patient reported outcome in terms of how it's impacting their life, how they feel on the treatment. So that's also part of the development. So if we are seeing the patient voice more and more, and hopefully it'll just become more visible as we go forward.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you all so very much. That was incredible. That's actually one of the most I've hosted so many events over the last few years since I set up the Women Warriors Network. And that's actually one of the most interesting I've just been involved with, listening to all of you as professionals in the healthcare industry and from different perspectives. And I think I've learned a lot. The knowledge you all have is incredible. It's that's why I have these beautiful, amazing women.
No, and I think it's great, Sandy, as well, that you say out loud as well, like, I'm not on healthcare and not in that area. So it's also great because I know your Women Warrior Network is so big that, like maybe when the video goes out, maybe other women or members will also, kind of pick up on certain things for their own health, for their family, or for their careers. And the same as I did when I went to your event on sustainability, which I'm not an expert in sustainability, but I learned so much. So I really applaud you for doing amazing work with Women Warriors Network.
Thank you. I think so I had a few of the men who had signed up for the event. There was over 360 then. And then was said, oh, are we allowed to join? And I said, absolutely. It's a platform for women, whichever topic, industry we are talking about, to shine. It's their platform, and I don't want to take that away. But I love the involvement with men who are supportive of women, which there are many, many of them around. So don't think we're anti-men. We love the men in all of these industries also. But again, I just want to thank you all as we finish off for this event. Again, the recording will be sent out with the highlights and then the full version also. And if anybody wants to reach out to these incredible speakers, Nadine van Dongen, Kate Munro, and Shannon Altimari, I can give you their contact details or connect with them through LinkedIn or wherever you need to. So thank you all once again. Have a wonderful day. England isn't very, I know we have people in the Middle East always who's signing. It's very grim. Summer is not looking good, but you've all brightened up my day. Teaching me so much. And remember, Women Warriors Network is a place to connect, contribute, and to collaborate. And if anybody else wants to sponsor, because we're very little, even though we are growing rapidly, please reach out also for that. Thank you, guys. Thank you so very much. And
thank you, Sandy.
Have a great Tuesday.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.